Close enough.
Hey! You just couldn't wait to gloat, could you? You just had to interrupt me.
Well, after last year when you had some stranger break into my house to steal the cup, yes. Yes, I did.
God, you just couldn't give that up, could you? Well, joke's on you. I'm not giving up this cup. I told you I didn't want to do it, so just no.
Now wait a minute, PK.
No. No more. Let's get this party started. It'd be nice to get things going here and what the hell? Where did it go?
You mean this one right here?
How the hell?
Come on, that was a little too predictable. All I had to do was call up a few contacts I had who work airport security to stall and search you when you got off your flight.
Yeah, that was uncomfortable. That strip search was really not needed.
Hey, that's what you get for trying to run away with the cup. But now that we got that out of the way, let's get on with the show, shall we? Another year and another awarding of the Stanley Cup has come to pass. This time it was the Pittsburgh Penguins who came out on top, thanks primarily to their non-superstar players stepping up when things were truly on the line. But before we start recapping the finals, let's talk about the first 3 rounds. While there weren't many unexpected outcomes in the East, save for Florida losing in the first round and maybe Washington's second round elimination, but then again, the Caps have a tendency to fold early in the playoffs, regardless of how well they did in the regular season. However, in the West, things were a bit more chaotic. 17 of the 21 pro analysts for the NHL picked either Anaheim, LA, or Chicago to win the conference, all 3 of which were knocked out in the first round, and only 1 analyst picked San Jose to win the conference. Granted, with the exception of Nashville and Minnesota, all of the other Western teams were picked by at least 1 analyst to win the conference.
I guess there's no point in running away, so here I am back in the studio since you got your magical cup. Ugh. So let's talk about the first round, shall we? Now, if you took all the teams, put them into a blender, and then just randomly picked out who it was, that's pretty much what the first round was. I went 4 for 8 on the first round. I mean, with St. Louis getting lucky and making it to the second round, Nashville taking out Anaheim in 7 games in the West, Pittsburgh actually winning round after round, it was anybody's cup to win. Granted, knowing the Caps would fold like every single time in the second round, that one was an easy pick. Sorry for all you Washington Caps fans. What I didn't expect to see was Florida, who had some very impressive stats in the season, actually get knocked out in the first round. But they did have Luongo, and Luongo was part of Vancouver, so I should have expected that. I also wasn't expecting to see San Jose or Pittsburgh in the finals. It was pretty much the lower seeded teams in the West making it easier for San Jose to get by to the finals, and Washington flubbing it as per usual in the East for Pittsburgh to get by for the finals.
It really was anyone's game this year. There were 91 playoff games played this time around, and 49 of them were decided by only a single goal. What was odd, though, was how quickly most of the games that went into overtime ended. This year, 20 games went to overtime. Of those 20, 16 only required one overtime period, with 10 of those 16 games ending with less than 5 minutes of overtime played, and 8 needing less than 3 minutes of overtime before a winning goal was scored.
Was it a new record for lowest minutes in overtime in a playoff season? There really wasn't much overtime anywhere. Some rounds were close games where they needed a lot of overtime in their series, but other than that, you didn't see much overtime at all. It was really quite weird.
Though the overtime periods didn't last long this year, the record for fewest minutes of overtime played in an NHL postseason is still from the years 1926 and 1963, when a grand total of 0 overtime minutes were played in the playoffs. But let's move on now to the Stanley Cup Finals. Even though I picked San Jose to win the West, I have to say I was still a little surprised that they did. Not only that, but they put up a decent fight against Pittsburgh. Though I do think that was mainly because of Martin Jones keeping the games close for the Sharks, despite facing an average of about 34 shots a game. On the Pittsburgh side of things, like I said earlier, I liked that it was the unsung heroes of the team that came through in most of the clutch moments, like Brian Rust's pair of goals that won Game 7 of the conference finals, Nick Bonino's overtime goal that eliminated the Capitals, as well as his team-leading 14 assists, or Ian Cole's 52 blocked shots in this year's playoffs. What did you take away from this year's finals, PK?
I have to say, the first couple of games were pretty close games with both of them going into overtime. The next few games were actually a couple of goal margins, which made it still interesting. But San Jose just didn't have it in them to beat out Pittsburgh. After a 3-1 series lead, they tried, but it just didn't happen. I would have loved to have seen the Cup stay in the West, but of course that didn't happen either. Pittsburgh won. Congratulations to them. Sure. I gotta say, we did talk about the MVP a little bit, and I know you're upset with this, and understandably, I can see why. I mean, the only way I can see Sidney Crosby actually getting the MVP is with his 3 game-winning goals. However, Phil Kessel managed to score 10 goals over the playoff run to Crosby's 6. So I thought it'd be Kessel, for example, and not Crosby. I don't understand why they went with that. What are your thoughts?
Okay, yeah. I don't normally rant, but this one frustrated me. This is a trophy awarded to the player judged most valuable to his team during the NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs. You mentioned Crosby's 3 game-winning goals. Well, I went through the box scores and compiled the Penguins' numbers for the playoffs, and game-winning goals was the only major stat that Crosby led his team in. A nice stat, but also a misleading one, since if a team is winning a one-sided game 4-1, and the losing team manages to score one more goal just before the game ends, then whoever happened to score the 3rd goal for the winning team is credited with the game-winning goal. The winning team had a firm lead already when the goal was scored, and taking it off of the scoreboard would not change the game's outcome. This was the case for 2 of his 3 game-winning goals. Now, when I break the numbers down by the best performers on the team in each round, a case could be made for Crosby based on just his first-round stats, as he tied with 2 others for most goals and assists on his team in round 1, and he did have the most points. But in round 2, his name appears nowhere as a top producer for the team. In round 3, it appears only for game-winning goals. And in the finals, he tied with Letang for most assists, half of which he got in only the last game of the series. On the flip side, Kessel led the team in goals, points, and shots taken at the end of the playoffs, and was a leader in goals in round 1, a leader in assists, plus minus, and multi-goal games in round 2, a leader in goals and points in round 3, and produced just as much as Crosby point-wise in the finals. I looked at goals, assists, points, plus minus, shots on goal, hits, block shots, multi-goal games. Crosby's play just wasn't consistent enough to merit this award. I'm sure he gave some rousing speeches in the locker room, but this is not the movie Mystery Alaska, and he is not Russell Crowe. The Conn Smythe is awarded for on-ice performance, and there was at least one other who deserved it more on that team. Think my numbers are off? Then I challenge anyone to go through the box scores themselves and prove me wrong.
Well, I just opened up a can of worms on that one. The man behind the mask is very passionate about his hockey, and rightfully so. It seems you and I are on the same page that Kessel should have been MVP. Honestly, that would have been an amazing extra little jab to the Maple Leafs for trading him. However, now he does get to gloat and bring the cup back to Toronto to show it off if he really wants to. And honestly, I think he should. However, I must say this. As much as the playoffs were exciting to some, being Canadian, they really didn't excite me at all. I don't think I ever want a playoff run again where there is no Canadian teams involved in the playoffs. Even if they get knocked out of the first round, it really just didn't make beer drinking that enjoyable during them. I don't know if you shared the same thoughts, but hockey is Canada's game. It was created here, and we truly own the ice. Yet we couldn't get a single team in the playoffs. That was just sad.
Yeah. Well, PK, I know it was a rough year for your Canadian teams, but I hope to see some back in the mix in next year's playoffs.
You and me both. Plus, I plan to have that cup back in my hands as well.
You mean this one? Yeah. Good luck with that.
Oh, just you wait and...
Yeah. Till next year, PK.